Wagwan, everyone. I hope you're doing well, and welcome back to another Premier League preview show. Guys, I know this is another pre-recorded one. This week has been absolute manic with the football and with everything that's going on. But yes, people, we are bringing you another one. If you are brand new to this, guys, you bring your predictions as well, and to be within a chance of winning prizes at the end of the season. But you have to be consistent with them. And guys, if this is your first time watching, don't feel free to come drop your predictions in the comments section. We've got our brother, my co-host, the man himself. Is he sitting pretty at the top of that table? He'll let you know. But it's Edmin. How you doing, bro?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Yeah, we're keeping it in the family, the top of the predictions league. It's actually my little boy Jacob, who's 7. He's top somehow. Then it's UT. Then it's me. So yeah, we're keeping it in the family at the minute. But it's all in the Discord, guys. If you aren't in there, get in there. Your predictions. There's a predictions tab with the table and stuff in there, and it's never too late. All it needs is a couple of good weeks, and you're right up there. So yeah, don't be discouraged if you are new. There have been a few new subscribers today after the Arsenal reaction. So yeah, if you are new, what we do, predictions in for the games, 3 points if you get the result spot on, 1 point if you get the score spot on, 1 point if you get the right result, and we just tally them up over the season. And I update it every week. So after the game's finished tonight, so just to let you behind the curtain a little bit, it's Thursday night, almost 8:45. So the games are still going on tonight on Thursday. So I'll update it tomorrow probably.
But yeah, people, you're watching this on Friday. Exactly.
Yep.
Now it is right. It is 9:15 with Fulham versus Aston Villa and Leeds versus Leicester still carrying on whilst we're doing this. So people, bear with us with a few of these things that we're talking about, especially when it comes to injuries and those things there. But we'll fly through these, get our thoughts on these games coming up. And guys, you most importantly, leave your predictions in the comment section. And whilst you're doing that, you'll be very much grateful to leave the like button as well. If you do enjoy the video, of course. If you don't like it, because I'm not here to force you. But people, we're going to get started now. And as you can see on the thumbnail with the 2 players that are on there and the 2 teams, it's got to be Chelsea versus Manchester United. And after this midweek games, Chelsea away to Brentford, had a 0-0 draw, probably deserved in the end. We'll talk about that as well. And then Manchester United with their best performance of the season against Tottenham Hotspur. Massive credit to Manchester United in that one. But Ed, what do you think about this one coming up here? As you can see, the XG going into this game.
Yeah, so there's not a lot between them in terms of XG. That's the numbers in brackets there. So Chelsea's at 1.6. Man United slightly higher at 1.69, and goals are expected in this game, almost 3.5 goals expected in this game. So the stats are definitely pushing towards both teams scoring. I think there are holes in both defences, but also their midweek performances, as you said. I think the big talking point maybe is how good Man United really did look against Spurs. So Spurs definitely did set up as we expected, hit on the counter-attack, try and make the most of their chances. But Man United didn't really let them have many chances. And the ones they did have, it's the Conte system, isn't it? If you don't take the few that you create, all of a sudden it's quite difficult for you to get anything out of games. But Man United, I think, deserve more of the credit than Spurs being overly bad for me.
Yeah, and being as we're talking about United, it makes sense to give them the credit and the praise first, because from back to front, their defence, Lisandro Martinez, excellent against Harry Kane, as well as Varane up against Son, really marshalled them out. My man of the match was also a part of that back line in Diogo Dalot, who was excellent for me. Like going forward defensively, even when he's coming into that midfield, providing that overload in those wide areas. Technically, he's a really solid player. You can see he's Portuguese and in the mold of a João Cancelo, but he's that bit better. He's that good defensively for me. Like Son and Perisic had no joy, and that is where Tottenham's strengths really come from. Perisic, they really do attack on that left side more than they do on the right, and he was linking up well with Anthony, and they were all a bright spark. The midfield with Casemiro, breaking the play up, winning the ball, playing it through the lines as well, which is something that he's been a little bit maligned of and criticised in that area of his game. As he was at Real Madrid, he didn't really need to do that. The emphasis wasn't on him as much, with Kroos and Modric playing the balls through the lines and being the creative spark centrally. And then also going up front with those wide areas. I thought Anthony was impressive. He's a live wire. That was his best performance for me. Anthony, even though he scored in those other games in the Premier League, he wasn't as impressive as the goals that would make you think in terms of his overall game. But yesterday, he was a live wire. He was all over the place. He was on them like a rash, causing them problems defensively, dribbling past those players. And then Bruno, who was the man of the match for a lot of people on TV as well. This is what Bruno can do. He was creative. He was assured in possession as well. He didn't overplay it a little bit. He didn't overplay it too much like he usually does. But the question with Bruno has always been more about consistency rather than his actual quality. Sancho, probably the only one who faded a little bit, and there's a little bit of a worry around Jadon Sancho because he's had a while now. He's just over into a full season and a bit now. Being at Manchester United, of course, it's a new system under Eric Ten Hag. Not all players are going to flourish straight away. So I think he struggled a little bit, Jadon Sancho. But then, up front, Marcus Rashford causing a threat in behind. Should have scored if he would have decided to place the ball instead of striking it with so much power in those occasions. Good save from Lloris, but you know what? I'll blame the strikers a little bit more on that one because, it's not even the fact what he's done wrong is he's going for too much power rather than placement. Half that power and go for a little bit more accuracy. I think you beat Lloris in those situations. But yeah, massive credit to Man United. Best performance of the season. And Ten Hag, I'm sure he'd be proud of that as well with the style of play that they played with in that game. But what was your thoughts on Chelsea? And what has your thoughts been on Chelsea of late? Because this is two new managers, respectively coming into their sides. Graham Potter has had a good set of results, but what do you think of their performances in recent weeks?
Well, I think obviously Potter unbeaten, unless I'm mistaken, since joining Chelsea. But you can definitely see that he's still very much trying to get his system across with these Chelsea players. Obviously, there's a little bit of talk about sort of his Sterling playing sort of out of position some weeks, this sort of hybrid left wing back, left wing kind of position that he's been having. And you've definitely got the issue in that game as well. I guess Gallagher going off quite early with Kovacic coming on kind of changes the dynamic a little bit. Your game plan needs to shift a little bit. In-game management for Potter's never normally been a bad thing. We saw at Brighton that he could mix it up and change it quite quickly, and they were very good at adapting to changing formations, changing mid-game. So I think the more and more that he spends at Chelsea with arguably better players, I think we'll see that. They're not in a rebuild in the same way that Man United are, of course, but they are in a slight evolution, aren't they, from Tuchel's to Potter, the sort of longer planning that they will probably have under Potter, because Tuchel, we called it at the time, never stays around for very long, and didn't, of course. But Chelsea's performances, I think, they're up and down in between games, aren't they? So we saw that in the Palace game recently, that they looked dominant in places. Then they were scrapping towards keeping control of the game, and I don't think we should underestimate Brentford. I know David Raya put in a relatively good performance like he did at the weekend as well. So, for me, I think this game is going to be tight to call. This is why we've started the preview show with it. It's probably the marquee game of the weekend. Chelsea at home, maybe you give a little bit of an edge to that, but Man United's performance was very, very good. And I think Lloris, although there's saves that he should be making, especially a player of his calibre, there were still some very good saves in there as well. So he didn't seem to have very much shielding from his defence in that game, if I can be honest. If you're asking me now for a prediction, T, I think I'm going to go with a scoring draw on this. I think I'm going to go with the stats. I think I'm going to go with a 2-2, I'm seeing goals in this one.
This game usually does end in a draw, just off the top of the head. I can't really remember many victories for either side. I know last season both games ended in 1-1 draws. You are right. I agree with you that Potter is early into his reign. I think a big reason into why we're seeing a little bit of inconsistency is mainly because this squad is so massive at Chelsea. There's too many players to choose from. Whereas Potter just needs to, he's trying to understand players who will fit his philosophy. Because I wouldn't say necessarily system, because he's very versatile in that sense. And he's got many plans to Graham Potter, which is why he's so attractive as a manager and as a coach in my eyes. Not physically, but I mean, he is physically better now, isn't he? With his fresh trim.
He's having a bit of a glow up. He's having a bit of a glow up, isn't he?
Exactly, you know, West London for you, isn't it? That's exactly what it is. He's been spending a lot of time in Knightsbridge, but yeah, there are a lot of players that he's getting through. You know, there was plenty of changes in midweek. Brozier having his first start. Gallagher was brought into the side. Chukwuemeka was getting a game. And then, you know, that's excluding the likes of Pulisic, who played, Ziyech, who's not there, Loftus-Cheek playing at fullback, and etc. There's plenty of players in and around Chelsea. Finding his best team is going to be difficult. And then also trying to really imprint his style on the side without a pre-season. I'm going to edge it for Chelsea, though. The only reason I say that is because the area of uncertainty around Manchester United at home, they have been excellent in those big games. We have to be honest. Arsenal, Liverpool, and Spurs, and deservedly won all three of those games. Away from home, of course, they played Manchester City. It's a bit difficult, but yeah, I think the Chelsea crowd will carry them over in this one, and I'm going to go for a 2-0 Chelsea win in this one. Massive one in regards to the battle for top four. If Manchester United grab a draw, I think they'll be happy, taking 5 points out of those 3 games against Newcastle, Spurs, and Chelsea. I think that's respectable. So yeah, a draw away from home is never bad in the Premier League, especially if you're fighting for that top 4. So yeah, I'm going to go with a 2-0 win though for Chelsea.
Just on the stats, Steve, just quickly, I did look up. You are right, by the way. It's 4 draws in a row in this game. So we've got 4. Yeah, we got 2 1-1s and 2 0-0s. So dating back all the way to 2020, obviously.
Wow, I'm going against the mold here. I went for a draw to play it safe, but this is why you're in and around the top 4, aren't you, Ed? Yeah, I mean, yeah. So we'll see. We'll see indeed. We'll move on into the next game, which we just spoke about them briefly. Spurs, and they are up against Newcastle. Huge game here. This one's on Sunday. It's the evening kickoff. Late Sunday afternoon, 4:30 in the UK. Ed, bring us through the XG here, because it's looking all right for Spurs in this sense, which is a little interesting, I'd say, given how Spurs have played in their recent games.
Yeah, I think it is. I think this is down to, like I say, when you look at the stats and how the XG's calculated, it tends to be that Spurs don't necessarily create loads, but when they do, they tend to be very good chances. And of course, with players like Son and Kane and Kulusevski, you are going to have, I know obviously the last one I believe is injured. We also managed to talk about United without talking about Ronaldo, by the way. So maybe that's something we can touch on another point. But but the XG for Spurs is just over 2. Newcastle's is a very respectable 1.56, and we can pretty much call the average goals in this game as a 3. But T, I've got a question for you. How impressed with Newcastle are you this season so far?
I got to hold my hands up. I remember when we did our prediction show, I wasn't impressed with their start. They picked up a lot of draws. I think at one point, I think they only had 1 win to their name, and the rest were draws.
Yeah.
But to be in and around the top 6 and top, fighting in those top 4 positions at this stage, Eddie Howe and Newcastle as a whole, the players, the recruitment staff have done an excellent job. And the metrics as well, if you have a look into the data of Newcastle in terms of XGs, we're seeing right there, 1.56, which is decent, which is quite good, even defensively, and then even within the press and chances created. Newcastle are up there within the top 6 teams, so it's interesting. And you know what? I'm going to ask you now. Throw this back at you now, bro. Mm-hmm. Is it too early for Newcastle to be within the top 4 race?
No, I don't think it is. I think their performances are meriting where they are in the league right now, and I think that, as we've talked about pretty much all season, their signings have been well measured. They've not splashed cash, sort of a la Man City in the first go around when they sort of brought in Ilanos and spent money on Benjani and Adebayor and all that kind of stuff. They really have gone down the road of, they've got all this money in. We don't need to talk about where it's come from, but they have it right now. And they're bringing in players in positions that they needed. Sven Botman looks like a very solid centre back. Nick Pope, England's number 3 with a bullet for me, but very much a proven shot stopper at this level. You've got that, like we talked about last week in the preview show, that sprinkling of stardust in some of their players. Almiron seems to be like playing like a man possessed right now, but the best Bruno in the league is Guimaraes in the middle. He is an incredible central midfielder, and how he can dictate a game, get in the box and create chances or finish them off. He's growing week by week. He hit the ground running when he came to the Premier League, and I think if you look at players like him, St. Maximan, Callum Wilson, Nick Pope, Kieran Trippier, by the way, underrated signing potentially of last season. What he was able to bring on the pitch to start off with, then even just driving the levels of the pitch when injured. He's hit the ground running this season as well. I think we shouldn't be out of the realms of expecting Newcastle to be in and around that top 4, top 6 positions, I don't think.
And now this is where we got to kind of talk about Spurs, and I'd love to hear your input on this as well, because you're more neutral than myself, because it's not looking great for Spurs, and there's a lot of stats now that are being brought up. At the time it wasn't, when Spurs were winning their games. Spurs aren't playing well, but they're winning. That's amazing. That's great to see. But now the narrative has shifted to Spurs. They've only beaten out of their 7 wins, 6 of them have come up against teams in the bottom half of the league. So those are teams that you're expected to beat in those big games. Arsenal away, Manchester United. Those 2 losses that they've got to their name, awful performances, and could have been by more, especially in the United game. 15 shots in 30 minutes, allowing that to happen. That's awful. And then only having 2 shots on target in this game, which was flattering at that, because it was basically a 0 shot on target. Their new signings in there haven't really improved the squad, apart from Perisic. Apart from the levels Perisic, but even then, he's not hit the levels that a lot of Spurs fans or a lot of people were telling you.
Or hoping for,
Yeah, exactly. Mainly due to age, I believe, and the point in his career. Basuma, I was having loads sitting at me. Someone was telling me they'll cave my head in because I didn't want Basuma, because I wasn't so excited about Basuma coming to Arsenal. I said, yes, he'd be a good depth player. But apart from that, he ain't coming in and starting. And then a lot of Arsenal fans, no, he would come in, he would be amazing. He's not doing it well at Spurs at the moment, and he can't settle into that midfield. And then the other signings in Jed Spence, Fraser Forster, they can't even get a game. Fraser Forster signed as a backup, but Jed Spence can't even get a game in that right wing back position, which, it's not looking great. And Antonio Conte, we know, is a short-term manager with how he operates, and he's going to be looking at, the potential Juventus job or the jobs that are appearing in and around Europe. This job that he's doing at Spurs, it is for the short term and short-term success only, clearly, by what he's doing. But this uncertainty around Harry Kane's future, with Bayern Munich sniffing in and around as his deal is coming up to an end. What's he got? 2 years left remaining on his deal now. So it's not all rosy there, and this is a huge game. However, the only caveat that I will give them is that those games did come away from home, and I expect them to raise the level of performance here. You gave the first prediction. I'm going to go for the Chelsea Man United game. I'll give my prediction here and how the game's going to go. I think Spurs are going to operate in the exact same way in that sense, and trying to hit in on the counter-attack. Newcastle, though, they have against Manchester United, they were Jekyll and Hyde. First half, excellent. should have scored plenty of chances, should have had a penalty. Second half, Manchester United deserved that in my eyes. They can't do that again because with Spurs at home and the forwards that they've got, as you can see from the XG, Spurs will punish them. I'm gonna go though. I'm gonna play it safe. I'm gonna play it safe because they are at home, and Antonio Conte, I'm sure he'll try and get in off the back of them, and he has managed to get a reaction out of them previously. So I'm going to go with a 3-1 Spurs win in this game. Just a little bit too much for Newcastle. But if they do grab something, I think that they confirmed they are in this top 4 race.
Yeah. So just quickly on Spurs, looking at who they've lost to this year so far, like you talked about, they've got Man United, a disappointing draw to Frankfurt. They've lost to Arsenal. They've lost to Sporting. And they drew with West Ham and with Chelsea. So I think it bears fruit what you've just talked about. And I think if you look at the performances in both the Champions League when they've left a little bit to be desired, I'm actually going to back a draw in this one again. I think I'm going to go with a 1-1. I think I have a little bit of faith in the Newcastle stone that just keeps rolling on. So I'm going to go with a 1-1 in this one. I just think we know Conte's not here for a long time. We know he's here to do something, and he has to do something this season. Because I think, as you've talked about, there are jobs that will become available this summer, especially with the World Cup and everything else that's happening. That's probably going to affect clubs and club managers a little bit more than usual. So I'm actually going to go for a 1-1 in this one.
There you go, Mr. IKEA. I'm going to call you now with all these draws. But anyways, we'll move on into the next game. So do you know what? I might group these together because it is the 2 top sides. Arsenal, our team. I've just done a match reaction to it, so I am recording this straight after against PSV. Arsenal away to Southampton and Manchester City at home to Brighton. Two sides that you'd expect the league leaders in this title race currently to be beating. Arsenal got that 4-point advantage. Man City have to win in this one, and Arsenal really, if they're going to be keeping up their title credentials, they're going to have to win as well. Otherwise, that doubt is going to start to creep in after the performances in the last 2 weeks. But yeah, bro, which one do you want to talk about first? Which side in particular between Arsenal, Manchester City?
Let's start with number 2 and then move on to number 1. So let's start with Man City, Brighton, I would say, and then we can give Arsenal the billing after that. So yeah, for the XG for this man, yes, I know. The Man City average goals obviously is helped by Haaland mostly. So 2.65. So the average goal stat that I use is genuinely just how many goals have both teams scored divided by the games they've played. There are more strategic and statistical average goals, but the website I get the XG from, I just use the average goals that's on there. So that is literally just a mathematical equation of games played, goals scored in both games divided by each other. So the XG is 2.65 for Man City and 1.64 for Brighton. The XG has actually gone down since De Zerbi came in, but not by very much. The XG was always quite high last year under Potter and the start of this year, but it's gone down by about 0.4. I think it was almost 1.9 for a lot of the season that we've been doing so far. And as you said, as you pointed out, the average goals massively affected, I think, by Erling Haaland and the Copenhagen results and the Man United results of 4.5 here as well. And Brighton haven't been shy of goals either themselves this year, either letting them in or scoring them.
And you know what? City, after the back of their defeat, and in 2 games, by the way, 2 games in a row, they haven't scored. Copenhagen away, they were 0-0. And at Anfield, they couldn't manage to score in that one. They're going to bounce back, though, aren't they, bro? They've had a week's rest where Brighton, they've played. I think there's a little bit made too much of that, by the way, week's rest and stuff, because I think City, speaking to a lot of City fans, they say they prefer it when the games are coming thick and fast because their players are more in rhythm and they continue like that. And with the squad depth that they have and the versatility they are able to get players minutes and playing through and picking up form in that sense. So I think they're going to bounce back, though. That narrative, a lot of people are going to say that, come back with a vengeance against this Brighton side who haven't been as good as they were under De Zerbi. And the one thing that you'd say for Brighton is the concern that's creeping back up is that lack of goal scoring instinct in their forwards, which was an issue under Graham Potter previously, and not managing to score against this Nottingham Forest team. Yeah, it says a lot. They did create plenty of chances, as they did against Spurs as well. But yeah, the goals are drying up a little bit. However, what I will throw at you here, bro, is this the type of game that Brighton will thrive in, with space allowed in behind, like they did away at Anfield, scoring 3 goals in there with De Zerbi's first game? Trossard being able to counter-attack. We know how lethal he is. And he steps up in these big games, especially away from home as well. Scored plenty of goals against big 6 sides in this one. Danny Welbeck will give you that physical presence. You know, the areas, what's Manchester City's weakest area as well? Certainly that back line can be got at against decent quality teams for me. You know what? King mentioned it to me at the start of the season. And ever since then, he's just been proven right. That back line is weak for me. And unless Pep sorts it soon, their title is really in doubt. But, bro, what would you say about this game here? What's your prediction?
Yeah, I think maybe the counterpoint to this week extra off is that's an awful lot of time for Pep to think. And we know what he's like sometimes when he's given too much time to think. So maybe that also comes into it a little bit, but it's a week's rest for Haaland. So I do think I'm edging towards Man City. But this is all set up for a Brighton performance and upset like we had with the Liverpool game, and how Brighton started the season sort of coming in quite hot against Man United. I remember at the start of the season as well. I think you've touched on sort of the important players. Will Gross be able to sort of dictate a little bit on that midfield? Rodri's going to have to do a lot to keep him, in check a little bit. The only problem I have at the minute is Brighton, they've blanked in 3 games. Haven't scored since that Liverpool 3-3. So we are getting back to the darker days of the Potter regime where goals weren't coming in. So I think I am going to let them score, because I am with you completely. And when we did our preview of the season, when I did Man City, I talked about that the back line was probably the weakest point. But a week's rest for Haaland is the kicker for me, I think, in this. And I think I'm going to go with a comfortable 3-1 win for Man City.
What? Do you know what? I'm going with goals here for this one as well.
Comfortable in scoreline, I should say. Comfortable in scoreline, not necessarily performance.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And that Haaland factor, I am also going to go with the Manchester City win. I'm going to go a bit rogue here. I went for goals in the midweek games, which didn't pay off, by the way. A lot of them were low-scoring games this week.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go for a high-scoring one. Manchester City 4, Brighton 2. I was thinking 1, but I'm going to go 2. If it ends up 4-1, I'm going to go mad. Honestly, I'm going to go crazy, because I've just pushed the boat a little bit there. I'm going to go 4-2 Manchester City. And then for the Arsenal-Southampton game, of course, Southampton bouncing off the back off of a win in that South Coast derby away to Bournemouth. Massive win for them. And Ralph Hasenhüttl, oh my word. What this guy? We spoke about this guy, didn't we, in the preview show last time?
Did.
Literally every time he looks like he's down and out, he bounces back and picks up a win just in time to face Arsenal. By the way, the league leaders didn't have a great performance away at Leeds on the weekend. Managed to grab the win. Had to show a lot of grit and determination in that one there. And you know what? That winning mentality, though, are Arsenal just going to keep building 13 out of 14 games in all competitions that they've won. 2 of the youngest sides in the league. Ed's, look at the XG right there. It's quite close in this one. It
is quite close. The XG for Arsenal took an absolute battering at Leeds. An absolute battering, because Saka's XG for that goal was 1.18, I think, or something quite low. And that's the goal he scored off.
It was 0.18.
So that's, yeah. Yeah, sorry, 0.18. Yeah, so and that's the goal you're scoring off. Yeah, so they actually took a bit of a battering, and Southampton's I think is slightly higher than their performances have shown as well. But I'm going to nail my colours to them. But I've already written down my predictions. I've gone for an Arsenal 4-0 win.
Woo! Bounce back with a vengeance.
I think Arsenal are on a roll. I think Alid from Clock Talks TV mentioned that you're getting a taste for these wins. The Southampton still didn't look very impressive from what I've seen of the midweek game. They're that bad that Wolves beat them this season. I think just Arsenal are going to have too much for them, especially if Saka is able to play the game as well. Because obviously, I know he picked up a potential dead leg or a slight injury this game. But I think Arsenal were able to rest a few of their players today, still pick up the win. They keep on rolling. I just think they're going to have far too much for what I believe is a very weak Southampton team, and I think they're especially weak at the back. Maybe you could tack on a goal for Southampton from a set piece, because obviously they have James Ward-Prowse who can put it on a sixpence, so potentially. But I'm nailing my colours to the mast. I'm going Arsenal to extend that lead at the top, or to at least keep it. At 4-0.
Interesting, right there. You know what? The one thing I want, apart from a win in this game, is a clean sheet. If we can have another clean sheet and try and build upon that now, and show that defensive solidity that, Gabriel Magalhaes, getting too much criticism in my eyes, was very good today. Didn't really have to come up against anything against PSV, but was excellent against Leeds. Our best player in that game defensively, and saved a lot of goal scoring opportunities and saved us in that sense. I'm going to go for a 2-0 win. I think what will happen is once Arsenal grab that second goal, maybe even the first, we will try and manage the game out. I think this is something I've been really impressed with Arsenal of late. And maybe it's a little bit of battle wounds and scars from last season and how we gassed out towards the end physically. I think they are managing games a lot better. Leeds, that one we didn't manage great. I will be honest. There was hanging for our lives in that one. But even against PSV today, and I've seen in other ones when Arsenal comfortably winning, we're managing them. We're not quite going for the absolute hammering and the battering. Those will come, but right now, because of this small squad and certain areas that we have, we are managing them a little better.
I think
if we win 4-0, I'll be glad, because we need goal difference. We need that on our side. And just the last thing I'd say as well, Arsenal in 10 games, we've scored 24 goals. I'll work this out. It's over 91.2 goals. Arsenal are on course to reach when we conclude for the 38 games. Guys, that's 90 goals that Arteta said that we needed to get when we lost to Liverpool if we are going to challenge for a title. So we're on course for that. We can keep that going. We're going to have a good one. But what was you going to say then, my bro?
Yeah, I think a lot of credit actually should be levelled to Leeds' performance at the weekend more than Arsenal being poor. I think Leeds under Jesse Marsch are a very different beast. They are still very much in their rebuild, and we'll talk about them when we talk about their game against Fulham. But for me, from what I saw, and I've seen the extended highlights and a lot of the game, I think more credit should be given to Leeds than sort of Arsenal dropping the ball or ceding possession or ceding control of that game. I just think Leeds came up with a game plan, and Arsenal were managing to roll with the punches, get a little bit of luck here and there, which you're going to need in a 38-game season to do what Arsenal are doing right now. And that could be a very pivotal game for Arsenal. These last few where you grab some stuff out, that could be huge. And let's be honest, Man City have blinked first. It's very early, but Man City blinked first with their performance at the great game against Liverpool at the weekend, where Liverpool came out victors. As much as Man City fans will know that it's a very long season, that is a small blink. There was a small blink at the weekend, and Arsenal didn't.
Exactly. Interesting thoughts there. Arsenal fans, listen to our brother Edmin as we move on into our next game, which will be Nottingham Forest at home to Liverpool. Massive one. This is the first game of the weekend. 12:30 kickoff at the City Ground. The atmosphere is going to be pumping. It's going to be rising, of course. Liverpool off the back of a win against West Ham. Well, what's that? Is that two wins in a row now?
Yep.
Liverpool trying to build up a head of steam if they are going to get back into this top 4 race, which I think they will be. But they're going to need to win away from home here and have a decent performance, I'd say, to breed a little bit of confidence into the side. But Ed, you've got the XG here. And how do you think this game is going to go?
Yeah, so Forest's XG is at 1.14. Liverpool's was dropping just below 2 before the Man City game at the weekend. That's gone back up to 2.01 with their 1-0 win against West Ham as well in that. And the average goals for this game, Forest have been keeping it a little bit tighter of late, and the average goals for this game is just 3. And considering Liverpool have scored 9 this season and scored 7, of course, in the Champions League, because that all counts to these stats as well. So for that to be quite low actually also shows that Forest have been able to keep it slightly tighter recently as well. How I see this game going, if Nottingham Forest are anything like I saw in person last Saturday, this Liverpool team with half a team should roll them over, because barring the bizarre penalty that Wolves gave them last weekend, neither team really created very much, but Forest created even less. This Liverpool team slightly back since that Rangers game. Obviously, there was a great battle against Arsenal at the start of this month as well. You know, they've got goals in them. We've seen that all season, even though they have been faltering. You know, they've scored a 9. They've scored 2 in that loss to Arsenal. You know, they scored 3 at Liverpool against Brighton. They've scored at Ajax as well. They've got goals this season, 2 on the opening day of the season. I just see Liverpool having too much for this Forest team. And credit where credit's due, Forest fans at the weekend, when I saw them, incredibly loud, loudest I've heard down the Molineux for a very long time, because they are here to have a good time. But I just think there's a little bit of a spark in this Liverpool team. They've come back fighting a little bit, and obviously they will be battle hardened now from the ding dong against Man City, picking up that win, hard fought win with a missed penalty for West Ham, of course, last night. I don't see it being I don't see this being another Bournemouth type performance from Liverpool in terms of a promoted team that they can roll over. Forest backline is still, as I say every week, it's very much a Championship backline, and I think that's a Champions League forward line, potentially for Liverpool, of course, without Jota now as well. So I think I'm going to err on the side of caution and go for a 2-0 Liverpool win.
Interesting. And yeah, the one area of weakness that you'd say for Liverpool is their defence, but you wouldn't necessarily say that's an area of strength for Forest this season. So they are, to get any joy, they're going to need to be fortunate with the chances that they do get and to score, which, West Ham certainly proved they could create chances against them. So Liverpool, they're not infallible at the back for sure.
No.
But I'm also going to err on the side of caution as well there, bro. I'm going to go for a Liverpool 1-0 win. Same scoreline
3 in a row
against West Ham. Yeah, 3 in a row. 1-0 win, take it, and then let's leave it. Did they win 1-0 last season there in the FA Cup as well? That was Jota with the goal.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think so, potentially. It rings a bell. It does ring a bell, actually. That would have been the last time they played each other for an awful long time as well, I'd imagine, as it often is with Forest.
They look more impressive in that cup run than they have done so far this season. So, yeah, Forest, unfortunately, I am still worrying, but I'm still going to stay strong. I'm going to say the great escape's coming for Forest.
Stick to it.
Stick to it. I can't jump off now. If I would have, I'd have jumped off earlier. I'm going to die on the ship.
Yeah. You were spot on, by the way. It was 1-0 last season, and it was Jota.
Oh, was it? Yeah, and yeah, he's suspected torn calf. That's awful. Awful, especially towards the end of the game.
Portuguese players are dropping like flies.
I know, right? Exactly. Just like their managers, aren't they, Ed?
All right.
But yeah, speaking of Portugal, you know what? Let's move on into Portugal Wolves, in fact, who are taking on Leicester. In the Midlands derby, West versus East, 2 relegation sides. Leicester currently are doing all right. They're 1-0 up at home against Leeds. I think they are. Let me just click refresh. Whilst Ed is going to talk through the XG in this one. It's 2-0 actually, 2-0 up against Leeds, in fact. So yeah, Ed, Leicester, they're going to be coming back to this with a little bit of confidence, a little bit of confidence in their step. And, you know, James Maddison's going to be back for this one as well.
Yep. And the one thing we aren't very good at is keeping hold of buzzing attackers, as Zaha and Eze showed us on Tuesday.
What did you think of that performance in that one, actually, as well?
What did I think of it?
The XG.
Yeah. So the XG, B&B, when you're watching this, mate, you can see that Wolves has rapidly dropped at 1.01. Leicester's is at 1.59, but that's, of course, without, as T's just brought us a live update, that they're 2-0 up as we speak. And the average goals is 3.4. I'm pretty sure that's Leicester that's brought that average up, because to think of Wolves being in a game where we might score more than one goal is bizarre. To answer your question, I was disappointed. I thought that the problems with that game were our game management from the dugout. And it's been announced today that we're keeping hold of Steve Davis till the end of the year. So he's seen us through to the World Cup. Despite what eagle-eyed football are telling you, they dominated the game. Look at the stats; they didn't. The first 50 minutes, it was a very even game. We created the 3 best chances. They hit the post from like 35 yards. Diego Costa should have scored. Neves hit the post. We scored a very good team goal from probably our man of the match, Hugo Bueno's assist. And then Palace scored a very good goal with Eze. Nothing you can do about that. We were on the phone when that happened too. Very good goal, bad defending, but credit to Elise and Eze for that goal. And then for some reason at 56 minutes, we decided to take off Adama Traore, not Darwin Núñez. If we had him, we'd have a striker. We'd take off Matthias Núñez, and we took off one other player. I can't remember now. Maybe Boubacar Traore, and completely conceded our midfield. We got rid of any strength we had in midfield in Traore, and our attacking threat in the other Traore, Adama Traore, brought on an unproven youngster in Hodge, brought on João Moutinho, who's more of a game manager type player now, and we weren't in control of the game enough to do that. And we took off the only player that was stretching Palace, and completely and utterly conceded possession of the ball, possession of the pitch, and we let Zaha in particular just absolutely rip us to shreds. He was different class. Him and Eze are incredibly good technical footballers, and we gave them far too much credit. And I'm not overly confident, T. Now you told me Leicester are winning about this game. We don't necessarily have a great record against Leicester either. I think we've only won 1 out of the last 6 games, I think, from memory. A few draws and a couple of losses. So I'm not overly confident. I'm not overly confident in our managers. And the Jorge Mendes gravy train seems to have hit a massive stop right now. We're now sort of getting the dregs. And I wonder if we're holding off for Julian Lopetegui's dad to die. So then he'll come back into management or something horrific. Because obviously we've gone for the QPR manager Beale today, who said, well, there's only like 3 positions between us in the league. So not that Ian, not that Beale, or his dad Pete. So yeah, I don't blame him for saying no either, because I don't know why you'd want to come to the basket case of a club that Wolves are right now. And we're seeing players like Guedes look like the first tranche of players that are coming from Mr. Mendes, who doesn't really want to be here. And that's the problem we have when you make a deal like that. They're the issues that you're going to come across. So I'm going to go for an optimistic 1-1 for this team. Try and get a point from somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know. Can you hear me? Is my connection all okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've got the one bar here. Sorry, people. Even having connection issues when it's a pre-recorded, but yeah, I'm not feeling confident with Wolves like yourself, Michael Beale. The fact that he rejected that job, it says a lot to me because, yeah, you know what, people, I give him credit as well for what he said. He spoke out. He said, you know what, I've just started this journey. I can't be the first one to get off this ship, he said. So, you know, massive respect to that. If that is the genuine reason, and I've got no reason not to believe him, apart from this is a Premier League club knocking on the door. You're not going to get the opportunity from a Premier League club, from Wolves, who have proven to be a decent Premier League side in that, in your opportunity, unless there's something out there that makes you think, hang on, maybe this isn't as great. And I do, and this is me speculating. This is me just being out there. Maybe the Wolves, you know, the way that you recruit isn't actually good for these philosophy managers that are trying to build something in a clear, defined way. In that sense, because, you know, it's not they're choosing like certain players. You're having players within this certain pool that Mendes is clearly picking, and you know, players that are clearly choosing Wolves as their next step in their career. Maybe it's not good sustainability for a manager in that sense, and he's looking at that. That's my hypothetical. If I was someone looking at it, and I'd probably be a little bit hesitant in choosing Wolves for that reason. Although they might be quality, they might not suit how you would want to play. Maybe that's why I'm not sure for the case for Nuno, why it's gone a little bit quiet on that. Is it because that Wolves did choose Michael Beale as their first choice, and, you know, Nuno's still in and around the shortlist? Maybe a star like Nuno might work with Wolves, being a little bit more pragmatic, just getting them to do the simple things well, just keeping players engaged, and then, you know, trying to build a defense first foundation, and then scoring goals. But I do think it is going to be difficult against Leicester. Because the one thing I'd say, well, the issue with Leicester is conceding goals. Wolves don't score many. That's their issue. But one thing Leicester
that's not
don't
going to be a
worry
problem.
about. Exactly. And one thing Leicester are quite good at is scoring goals. And that's why I'm a little bit worried. I'm going to go with a draw because Wolves, you know, they've not been great. They don't really tend to lose many games at home. Having said that, so I'm going to go for a draw, though. I'm going to go for a 0-0 draw. I don't know why. Average 3 goals.
I'd absolutely rip your hand off for a point right now, to be honest, just to steady this ship. The team I saw play in the flesh last weekend and then at Crystal Palace, they can be so Jekyll and Hyde. And hot off the press, I don't know if you know, Villa have actually lost the game 3-0 tonight to Fulham. So that's another.
That's going to be it for Stevie.
Yeah.
And do you know what? Do you think that's a good time for us to move on to Aston Villa?
That's what I was thinking. That was the I was going for too. We've been doing this for almost a year now. We're getting good at it.
Segue. Ed's got the segues on lock now. Steven Gerrard, is he even going to be here for this game here, bro?
I don't know. Well, I said at the last preview that we did that my Villa mate, who's gone tonight, bless him, he's gone all the way down to Fulham. I'm going to text him later and ask him how much a pint was while he was there. He said that he thought that even a point out the next 2 games wouldn't be enough, and he thought that he would be travelling down to see Stevie G's last game, and potentially would have been. So Villa versus Brentford, maybe the Villa board also see this as a bit of a free hit for any manager that comes in now, a mid-table team like Brentford. If we just quickly touch on the XG, maybe we can't really talk about Stevie G or Villa very much because it might be a very different team on Saturday, but or Sunday, whenever it is they play, probably Sunday with the fact they're playing tonight, isn't it? So Villa 1.28, Brentford's Ivan Toney's 1.43, and the average goal potentially probably would go up a little bit now with Villa losing 3-0 tonight. For those of you with Fulham players in your FPL, Mitrovic score tonight. So that's big for those of you who've got him. So the XG slightly leaning in Brentford's favour, but of course Villa on the back of some not great results recently.
Not at all. And I'm just having a look on here. Villa fans chanting since half time, "You're getting sacked in the morning" to Steven Gerrard. So yeah, let's say this now, because I feel confident in saying this. He's not
Go
there
on, then.
for this
Say
game.
it with your chest. Say it with your chest.
He's not there for this game. So whoever the manager is, caretaker, whoever that is, Steven Gerrard, surely he's gone. If I'm wrong in the comments, you say it. I don't know what I can do. He's surely not managing this game. When your fans are singing that, there's no way back. Surely there's no way back. And in that sense, in predicting this game at home against Brentford, are they going to have a little bit of a bounce back? I think they possibly could. So do you know what? I'm going for a Villa win. I'm going to go 2-1 Villa. Yeah, because of the bounce back of Gerrard getting sacked. If Gerrard's still there, Brentford all day long. But I'm going off the fact that I don't think Gerrard's going to be there. Whilst we're recording this, nothing's happened yet. It's only recently ended. So yeah. Aston Villa to win by 2-1 with whoever caretaker they have. Pochettino in for Villa.
I'm going to slightly hedge that this might be slightly too early for any kind of bounce. I think Brentford have completely and utterly. You talked about Newcastle. Brentford have proved me wrong. Brentford and Fulham. We'll probably touch on Fulham at some point. Definitely did not have either of those two teams where they are right now. I think Brentford are we always knew they were a good outfit, but I think they're more than just sort of a well-organised team now. They have threats around the pitch. They brought in good players. We've still got Damsgaard on the bench, who's not really had much of a chance yet. And Ivan Toney, week by week, he's proving that he has more to his game than just a target man mantle that I gave him at the start of the season. I still stand by currently. I don't think he's Arsenal level, but I think if he keeps performing the way he is and getting better and better, despite the fact he's sort of hitting his so-called peak in his mid-20s, I'm going to go with an Ivan Toney penalty, 1-0. I'm doing a Paxton right now. I'm channeling my inner Paxton, who I think is fourth in the league. And I'm even going for a scorer in this game. So 1-0 to Ivan Toney / Brentford.
Hey, how did that taste? I know you're full, because that was a lot of humble pie you just ate just there.
I'm happy. When you prove them wrong, it's fine. When you prove them wrong, it's fine, isn't it? Because
I like it.
Coming with no agendas. Genuinely thought Brentford were going to get found out this season, and so far I'm completely and utterly wrong. And looking at who they played some decent teams as well. So it's not as if they're kind of doing a Spurs, so to speak, and picking up points against teams you'd expect them to. They've had some good performances against teams that are in and around them as well. So beating Leeds, I remember they did that. You know, they beat Brighton recently, didn't they? They've only really lost to teams you'd expect, and picking up points again. You know, they came back. Was it 2-0 right at the first game of the start of the season? When I thought I was right when they were 2-0 down, I was smug for about an hour, and then they came back, didn't they, against Leicester? And I was like, oh, maybe I did get it wrong. So I think I've been wrong since August, but I'll admit it now in October.
But now a lot of people thought the same as you, though, bro, in all honesty, about Brentford. I was hearing a lot of that, you know, second season syndrome, those things there. I didn't think they'd do this well either. I thought they would stay up, and just because there's just three worse teams. I thought Fulham was one of them, so I've got to tuck in now. Yeah. Make sure you leave me a slice of humble pie, and that will lead us right into this one here, where Fulham, Ed with the segues, he's doing it, people. Ed, take it away. Actually, the show's yours. I'm gone.
So we're talking about Fulham now on their back of their 3-0 win. Please don't do that. It'll scare people away. Fulham, I'd imagine their XG will probably be higher now, and Leeds is probably... Actually, just a quick point on Leeds while we're here. They've had 9 shots to Leicester's 3. And Leicester have only had 1 shot on target, but they are 2-0 up right now. So this still looks as though Leeds are playing... The stats would have you believe that Leeds are technically creating more. They've had 6 corners, 9 shots, only 1 on target for each team, however. But the most important stat is exactly how you've just talked about with Leicester, is they've managed to get the ball in the back of the net. So, yeah, if we just quickly, on the XG, Fulham is 0.13, Leeds is at 1.59, and the average goals, again, probably had a little rise with tonight's games, obviously, with Leeds being involved in a 2-goal game at least right now, and Fulham's at 3. So I would say that's about 2.5-ish for this game. And as much as I've just bigged up Leeds, when we quickly touched on league leaders Arsenal as they played them at the weekend, just thought I'd get that in there for you too. They are definitely they've now had 10 shots in the last 10 seconds, so they're now up again to still off target. So they are obviously still creating chances away from home right now. I was going to say at Filbert Street, that's going back a bit, but at Leicester's ground at the King Power, it's before most people tee. It's that long ago. So Leeds obviously still creating. I don't know if Patrick Bamford's on, but it felt like he could play for as long as Wolves do without scoring. He looks like we should be playing him up front for us right now, the way Bamford's playing. No, he's been taken off of Jack Harrison. So where do you see this now? Because Fulham, as you said, I'll leave that last slice of humble pie for you to eat now about Fulham. And I think I'll tuck in with you because I had them relegated as well, I believe.
Yeah. So I think, do you know what? The pot is not big enough for everyone. I think everybody's gone for Fulham to get relegated, in all honesty. But yeah, I'll eat that because I didn't think that Marco Silva would be able to get the best out of them defensively. I thought Mitrovic, maybe he could score a few goals to keep them within with at the best would keep them in and around the relegation dogfight, but I still thought they were gone. Absolutely not. They're looking like a solid mid-table side against teams they're expected to play against and beat. They're picking up draws at the minimum, and let alone wins. Putting in some decent performances against higher level sides. And they've had the easiest start to the season as well in these opening 11 games. So they're just doing their job, getting through them, being efficient. That's how you be efficient, by the way. Fulham, so fair play to them. And Leeds, what you'd say is their biggest issue is not having a clinical goal scorer available right now. Because look at the XG. They create so many chances. And the best part about it, they're at home, right? And there's only one team who'd beaten Leeds at home this season.
We scored within 5 minutes.
And then Jose Sarr decided to throw the game for you. But maybe the Leeds on this without having seen a single ball kicked in that game. By the way, I'm just speaking hypothetically and being real. Maybe that game against Arsenal took a lot out of them, and in terms of energy and physically, not really mentally, because they would have came into with a bit of a pep in their step and a bit of confidence into this game. But the physical aspects of it, being at home, the Leeds faithful at Ellen Road will be able to carry them over the line for me. I think worst it will be a draw, but I'm going to go for a 2-1 Leeds win.
Okay. Yeah, I'm also edging a Leeds win because I think, as you rightly said, I think Fulham can be slightly up and down. Just quickly looking at their games, they drew the first 2 games of the season. Then every game since has been a win or a loss. I'm going to go with Leeds to pick up a. You said 2-1, did you? I'm going to go 1-0.
Yeah. Nice.
I'm going to go 1-0.
So what's that? We've got 2 games left to go.
We've got 2 games left.
We'll start off with Everton. Oh, what was that, bro? I think
I was going to say
delay now.
Yeah, I think we've got technical issues somewhere. I think we're all a bit wavy right now. So yeah, I was going to say we've got sort of a mid-table game in Everton Palace, and then a slightly lower level game in West Ham Bournemouth, obviously with where we were expecting teams to be, but Bournemouth, of course, doing very well. So yeah, if we just look quickly at Everton and Palace on the back of a good performance, especially in the second half against Wolves. Everton on the back of a loss in midweek, 1.2 for Everton, 1.23 for Palace, and I think the game with the lowest expected goals of the week at 1.7 for this game. Neither team necessarily free scoring.
Interesting, yeah. This one, Palace, they're going away from home. How this game ended last season, they're going to definitely want to have a little bit of revenge here. But this game is huge for Everton. little bit of negativity creeping back into the side now and within the fan base. After a decent start to the season, performance levels and grabbing a few and decent results in there, but their issue is scoring goals, and it will continue to be so. And as Ed will tell you right now, if you don't score goals in this league, you're not really having a chance of winning games, and that's what I'll give Crystal Palace credit for. By the way, you haven't actually said this. I'm going to say it for you, right? Go check out Ed's little clip when he talks about the Crystal Palace versus Wolves game, because my word, right, he gets it spot on. First, he gets the prediction right. He was so close with the Diego Costa. He said, I think Diego Costa's going to score. He'll score first, which if he did at that point score, he would have scored first. And you said it would lead to heartbreak in at the end with Palace winning by 2-1. Literally, without the goal scorer, you got that spot on. Wolves took the lead, but then Palace were able to nick it by 2-1. Go check it out. So I just think Palace are going to have a little bit too much on the counter-attack. Zaha on fire. Oh, my word. Did you see that chance that they had with Edouard when he went for the bicycle kick?
Zaha, Eze to Elise flips it up, and then Edouard. Elise, sorry, yeah. And, the overhead kick. Yeah, even part of me wanted that to go in.
Same. I wanted that to go in as well. I was like, oh man, if that can go in, that would be one of the goals of the season. Like literally, it wouldn't be many goals that would top that, if any, at all. But yeah, Goodison Park though, they can generate an atmosphere when their backs are against the wall. Frank Lampard, what this side lacks in quality, he gets out of effort. Oh, man, I'm going to sit on the fence here. Got splinters. Like I am actually at Goodison Park with their terrible seating and that. But yeah, I'm gonna go with a draw here. 1-1. What about you, bro?
I'm gonna actually back Everton to come back with this game. I think Palace did look very good in the first half. I still have some concerns with let's not beat around the bush. Joel Ward shouldn't even be playing in this game because he definitely should have been booked again for the tackle on Jose Sarr on his bad wrist. There are still definite concerns for me with their sort of right. I think at right back, he's gettable as much as I like him and respect him. He's a good pro. They're definitely gettable, and I just think Everton at home. I think I'm going to edge this in Everton's favour, but I'm not seeing them keeping a clean sheet, so I'm going to go with 2-1 and hope that Everton can prove me wrong and actually score some goals.
2 goals for Everton. That's a lot, you know.
I know.
But yeah, I'm sure Matt and other Everton fans will bite your arm off for that right now. 2 goals. And yeah, defensively, they haven't been quite bad. They haven't conceded too many, but yeah, it's just at the other end for them, which will move on into our final game of the weekend, which is also the Monday night game. I don't think there'll be too many tuning into this one, I'll be honest. No. Not many people will tune into Bournemouth games in particular, I'd say. But you know what? Massive respect to them. Gary O'Neill came up with his first defeat. And it was quite unfortunate because they did have chances in that game against Southampton. And I was actually watching the Amazon Prime goal show that they had, and the football, some of the little neat interplay that they were playing in and around the box. I mean, yeah, Gary O'Neill's done a decent job. And when I'm saying that for Bournemouth, I'm not saying in terms of against big teams, but the respect that we need to everybody give Bournemouth in terms of their start to the season, because we was talking about them being one of the worst teams in the Premier League, everyone was saying ever when I say that in the Premier League. So they still might get relegated. This is massive in terms for Gary O'Neill. One, it's against his former team in West Ham, and 2, how do they respond after a defeat? And West Ham, who are picking up some form, Declan Rice, beautiful against Liverpool, by the way. Some of the passes he was playing, and you know what? We know what that midfield is for the World Cup, don't we, Ed? Rice and Bellingham. I'm sure we'll do a video.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, because we were talking about this for about a good hour yesterday. Me and Ed was talking about this whole England situation, which the provisional squad will come out on Friday. But the latest Friday, he can actually, which is tomorrow, yeah. So Be an interesting one there. But yes, Ed, into this West Ham Bournemouth game, XG looking like a West Ham win, but 3.6 average goals. How do you see this game going?
Yeah, so I think you just touched on nicely on that. The West Ham, some would say unfortunate yesterday against Liverpool. Bit all over the shop for their season, looking good in some games, doing quite well in Europe, and then coming back and having a Jekyll and Hyde type of season in the Premier League as well. They are another team with not many draws to their name, just 2 all season. One against Spurs and one against Southampton at the at the weekend. Bournemouth, as you say, are they flattering to deceive, or are they doing better than the sum of their parts? I think you could argue both. But yeah, as we look to wrap up the show, I think I'm going to go with a West Ham win. I think David Moyes, to give him his proper title, now he's a European manager. I think he's got just enough in this game to. Do I go 1-0 or 2-0? I'm going to say 2-0. 2-0 to the Hammers.
2-0 to the Hammers. Oh man, I'm going to go for a West Ham win as well. I think Bournemouth will look a threat in this game, but just West Ham at the moment, they are trying to pick up some form. Hopefully, Scamacca had a big opportunity in that game against Liverpool and completely fluffed it. If he can continue,
he looks like that kind of player. He looks like that kind of player to
score
me.
A worldie. He'll score a worldie, but then miss a sitter. I do see that with Scamacca, you know. It's a good point. That is, I like that point you brought up there. Yeah, it will be interesting for West Ham. I'm going to go with what did you say? 2-0 was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to go for the same, but just to be different, I'm going to go with a 1-0 West Ham win. 1-0 to the Hammers in this game. And yeah, that'll be 2 defeats on the bounce for Bournemouth. But if they can bounce back and get a draw in this one, I'm sorry, we would have to be talking about Bournemouth a little bit more here in the job that Gary O'Neill's done. But yeah, but that's it. We've come to the end of the show here again, people. Another pre-recorded one. So yeah, apologies that we're not able to do this live just for a matter of time and just getting things out for you guys straight away and trying to get all these preview shows out, given the games coming in thick and fast and a busy period in our personal lives as well. But yeah, any final words that you want to say here, bro?
No, just as always, get your predictions in, both in the Discord if you want to, but most importantly, if you can, to push this channel. T had a little bit of a 4 or 5 subscriber bounce with the Arsenal show earlier on. If we could get it into the comments and just get it in people's algorithms, there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. So yeah, just keep it coming. And I'm guessing next week things will be a little bit easy without the midweek. So we'll probably be able to do, especially with the Arsenal game being slightly earlier, maybe next Thursday or Friday, whenever it is, it'll probably be back to the live shows. But if not, guys, we are trying our best to make sure that, you know, the preview show keeps coming out and T will do his other stuff. And yeah, we've only got, is it 40 days, is it, or something crazy, till the World Cup starts. So wait for that, and that's just going to get crazy.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy here, people. We'll be bringing you plenty of live streams here, reactions, and watch-alongs. I can't wait for it. I really can't. But yes, people, we are going to love and leave you now. It's been a fantastic one. Again, don't forget, listen to your boy Edmin right there. As he said, don't forget, like, subscribe, get your predictions in the comments to be within a chance of multiple prizes and giveaways. But massive appreciation to you all. Love you, really do, from the bottom of my heart. Love creating this content, and especially with my brother. We would chat football anyway, but now we're doing it with you guys. Catch you soon. Have a great weekend coming up ahead. It is Friday. This is coming out, and look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. God bless and peace. Just looking for the outro.